Good evening. Welcome to the March 25th Millis School Committee meeting. I am Shana Canistrari, Secretary. Chairwoman Robin Briggs will be in a little later. I will start with a roll call. To my right, Mr. Powers.
Here.
Mr. Conroy.
Here.
Ms. Gibbons. Here. Mr. Mullaney.
Yep.
And we have Mr. Terry Wiggin, Director of School Finance and Human Resources, and we have a teacher rep and student rep in attendance today. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. All meeting videos are also posted to the Millis Public Schools website under School Committee. All videos are also available on YouTube. All school committee minutes and agendas can be found on the school committee page of the Millis Public School website. Persons wishing to speak during open session must sign in before the meeting starts. Comments are not to exceed 3 minutes in time. Individuals may not name students, staff, or parents. All topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on this evening's agenda, and all comments must be directed to the chair. The committee may not respond to public comment. It shall be their decision to discuss issues at a later date. All times are approximate. Do we have anyone signed in for open session? Okay. All right, we will start with our student rep.
Hi, Nicholas.
Hello. Hi, Nicholas.
So, everyone, my name is Nicholas Roy, and I'm the sophomore student rep, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about things that are happening around Millis High School. So, right now, we are in the end of quarter 3, and it's going to end on Friday. I can't believe it. So, students are finally getting their academic assignments in place. The MCAS has also started, where 10th graders have begun testing today, the English MCAS, and will continue on the second session tomorrow. This week, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors will have their program of studies meetings with the school counselors, where each student will have the opportunity to start planning and preparing for course selection, which will happen soon. Prom tickets are now available, which are $85. Tickets for the event are on sale until April 11th, and the overall event will occur at Grand View Mendon from 6 to 9 p.m. For clubs, March Madness has been truly amazing, and clubs have been organizing various events throughout the whole month of March. And some notable ones included Mock Trials Arrest a Student or Teacher, which was a fundraiser where students could pay to arrest an individual for the charge of their choice. And also, we had Active Minds movie showing, where Inside Out 2 was played in the high school auditorium as a fun movie night. Some things that are coming up for March Madness include free baked goods from the Leo's Club tomorrow, and the annual Amnesty Club lettuce eating competition on Friday, where funds collected will go to children in Haiti who are struggling in the midst of a civil war. In addition, several students have been chosen to have their work displayed in this year's Youth Art Month exhibit hosted by the Massachusetts Art Education Association. And the online exhibit features artwork from schools across Massachusetts. And the following students will be featured include David Cranton, Mia Ferguson, Sarah Martin, Willow Sig, Elizabeth Curry, Riley Sylvia, and Avery Kovitz. There was also a more competitive art competition, which was actually a juried competition, where some of our Millis seniors got chosen, including Nora Malloy, Elizabeth Garish, and Ramsey Breslow. Finally, for sports, we kicked off our spring sports season last week, where our teams have begun practicing for the season, and the various competitions for each of the sports will begin very soon, so teams are very excited for that. Does anyone have any questions?
How did MCAS go today?
It was long, but it wasn't too bad. I thought that the questions were not the most difficult, but it was, of course, it's 2 essays, so it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
but
a lot of writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nicholas.
And now we'll have our teacher representative.
evening. I'll proactively apologize for my attire. I'm in the middle of Fiddler on the Roof rehearsal, and I forgot my grown-up clothes. So
You could have wore some fiddler.
I'll come in my kerchief and my dirndl skirt.
Costumes are
Little
great.
preview.
It'll be fun. All right. So students in grades 3 through 5 completed a practice MCAS last week in preparation for their ELA MCAS, which is coming. It's MCAS season. They want to do a big shout out to Laura Doherty for scheduling an amazing author visit from David Bedzritsky, who actually came to the CFB today to visit with grades K through 3. So we'll probably hear more about that next time. Grade 3 came back to my classroom last week for chem, so Senor Colazo's class and Ms. Tashin's classes were back over as we explored the additive properties of color and light in the auditorium, and then we did flame emission spectroscopy in my classroom. And then I have a couple more classes coming in next week and the week after, so it was pretty exciting just to see the little faces in the glowing firelight is delightful. And the high school kids who are working with them now are some of the first groups that came through back in 2017. So it's kind of this fun full circle. So the current juniors are the first group that we ever brought over. So so it's just kind of fun to have sort of that full circle piece happening at this point. And the grade levels K through 5 continue to meet with the counseling team each month to focus on character traits at their all-school assemblies. So February's character trait was friendship, and March's is respect. In the middle school, we have some grade 8 students editing their 3 branches of government essays and utilizing Magic School for feedback. So nice use of an AI generator there. The civics students are looking at landmark cases of the Supreme Court. And the grade 7 social studies students are studying Japan and Korea. And next we're moving on to the ancient tribes of Australia. And in grade 7, they're looking at probability and statistics. So that's fun. Grade 7 Spanish students are working on present tense conjunctions. And grade 6 science students are collaborating with ELA to write a new ending for the book, How Do You Dig a Hole to the Other Side of the Earth? So nice cross-curricular connections there. The grade 6 also enjoyed their trip to the Titanic Museum in Boston. And in grade 6 social studies, they are beginning their unit on Mesopotamia. So looking at the area between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, modern day Iraq, and kind of building their understanding of why the civilization happened there and sort of how different the ecosystem was to support a civilization of massive proportions there. The Crimson Post, and you can kind of still see a little bit of it up, I think, back there. The Crimson Post, which is the high school paper, had a museum display in the library last week. So basically, they went back with old school papers to 1986. They curated it, so the kids on the paper curated the exhibit. And so they were kind of reading about all the historical stuff that was happening in the world through the eyes of former Millis alums. And so the food and the fashion over the years, and they had some Millis area reviews. So the question I was supposed to pose to the general viewing audience that's out there is, does anybody remember Pago Pago as a restaurant?
Yes.
There was one in Milford, wasn't there?
Apparently, that was the question. And then the fun fact was that senior Johanna Goldstein found an article that her dad had written in the paper back in the early 90s.
Cool.
So that was a lot of fun. It was a great exhibit. I don't know if you got a chance to pop in.
I did not.
As I said, I think it might still be living
there's
over on the
some
blue
things on
boards
the
over
board.
there. So,
And there's some current copies.
yeah, it was a
over
really
there.
fun idea.
Yeah.
And I know I spoke to a freshman who was talking about how she's hoping that maybe she's already projecting down, but she's like, maybe my senior project could be something around archiving or curating.
Ooh.
I was like, she's like, it's just really interesting. So it's like, look at that, looking ahead and thinking about what you can do with it. As Nicholas said, we started MCAS today. We had really fabulous attendance, I'm happy to report, which was super exciting. And I got to proctor, and the students were just so lovely, as always. The Fiddler on the Roof, which is a collaboration between the school and the Millis Theater Group, is going into full production. It opens this Friday. So we've got students grades, I believe, 1 to 12 participating right now. We've got our littlest and our biggest, and Rhea Johnson, Kevin Brinchka have some pretty significant leads. So if you've got nothing else to do and have 3 to 3.5 hours, feel free to pop in and check it out. The Global Scholars sent 3 teams to participate in World Quest at Emmanuel College on Saturday the 15th. This academic world quest inspires high school students and teachers to embrace a culture of global engagement. So there are 40 local world affairs chapters across the country, and about 3,000 students participate in the competition across the way. And so it was super exciting for that. Amnesty International held a presentation in the auditorium this week to educate students about the humanitarian crisis in Haiti. So through a combination of slides and footage put together by the students, they highlighted key issues such as poverty, political instability, and the ongoing need for aid. So they were trying to increase awareness among the students. It's the second such presentation that Amnesty has done this year. They did one a little bit earlier this year on the situation around the elections in Venezuela. And again, as Nicholas mentioned, the lettuce eating contest will be coming to help the Save the Children Fund work. So I think it might be the third or the fourth annual lettuce eating competition.
It's been around for a while
It's been
now.
happening, yeah. It's been quite the exciting. I remember when it started, it was quite the fervor. So that is what I have for you this evening. Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Excellent,
No,
thank
you very much.
Okay, we will go to action items, and it looks like we have one item. Yes.
I make a motion to approve the March 11th, 2025 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I think maybe next meeting we can do those 19th meeting we had before the FinCom meeting. We can do those next school committee meeting. Approve those for the lease agreement.
Okay. And now we have time and learning, and we have Riley here to present the class of 2024 testing and placement report.
It's a really long report, so we gave Riley 3 bottles of water.
Drink water for two. Connected. Okay, it's good to see you all for our annual get-together. My name is Riley Dunn. I'm one of the 2 school counselors here at Millis High School, along with Nicole Knabel. And tonight I am presenting a profile of testing and placement, so some highlights from the report on the class of 2024, kind of going over some of their college placement or application data, their SAT scores, and their AP scores, or the AP scores from last school year. Before I jump in on the class of 2024, I'd like to kind of give a quick update on some of the things that we've been doing recently in the school counseling office, and kind of highlight some of the ways that we support students in grades 9 through 12. At this point, we've completed 2 rounds of freshman seminars, which are really focused on kind of helping the kids adjust to high school, differences between middle school and high school, helping them to understand things like GPA and resume, and different graduation requirements, as well as helping them to see the different ways they can make the most out of high school, whether it be through clubs, community service, sports, just kind of the benefits of getting involved in all those different ways, and how to make the most out of kind of building a community as they are going through their 4 years of high school. So we'll do a 3rd round with them in early June. We have, in February, we completed the 11th grade seminars, which are really diving into the beginning of the college application process. And then this week we have our sophomore seminars, which are starting kind of to get the kids thinking about career exploration and all the different things that people think about before choosing careers. They do personality tests that show them careers that are a good fit for their personality. We talk about salary and job outlook and, education and training, all that good stuff. And then we had our junior parent night in February, where we had admissions panel from UMass Amherst, Boston College, Mass Bay, Suffolk University, University of Alabama, and the College of Charleston there to talk with parents about the college application process from the perspective of the admissions counselor. So that was a great night. We had a college mini fair at Medway High School where we were able to connect our kids with over 70 different colleges, and that was only for Medway students and Millis students. So we collaborate with the Medway counselors to plan that college fair for our kids so that they really have full access to all of these schools and can, meet with college reps. The college reps, know that it's Millis kids when we have those 45 minutes to ourselves in there. So it's an opportunity for them to kind of get a sense of our students in our school too, which is cool, as well as, let the kids learn about different schools. We will have our 8th to 9th grade step-up night on April 10th, which I think this year, breaking news, I think we're going to make it kind of an ice cream social, which will be fun. So to kind of just like introduce the 8th graders to the high school and explain the course registration process to them as well. We did our Signs of Suicide program with all of our 9th graders in health classes. And we also did the Samaritans program with our 10th and 11th graders. And the purpose of those two programs is really to educate kids on how to support each other, look out for each other, and reach out for help if they're worried about themselves or a friend. We have started the process of course selection for next year, so the teachers have spent the last couple of weeks figuring out what they are recommending students for next year, and then tomorrow we'll be meeting with each grade to go over the course registration process, and then the kids will be able to see their recommendations for next year. And then we will sit down individually with every kid to make their course selections for next year. So that's always a fun, future-focused activity with the kids. It's nice because literally we sit down with every single kid, so it's like just fun because you get to see everyone, and it's busy, but it's fun. The seniors are in the process of completing the local scholarship applications that are given away at graduation. And we have brought in several career presenters for our students this year. We've had, and we have more coming. And so far they've included financial advising, fashion product management, electrical apprenticeship and auto apprenticeships, cosmetology, cybersecurity, graphic design, real estate, private equity, a CEO of a paper greeting card company, and data processing. So super grateful to the people who have come in from the community. Some of them are graduates from Millis High School who are coming back to share their experiences with our kids. And FlexBlock has allowed us the opportunity to provide those career, presentations, and kids can kind of sign up for the ones that they're interested in, which is nice. And then upcoming, we have the Credit for Life Fair on April 18th. So we've worked together with Principal Nash to secure a $6,000 grant. And that day, I think it's like a half day of activities where the kids will learn real life budgeting, personal budgeting experience. So we haven't done it before, so I don't know a ton about it, but it should be a cool real world learning experience for the kids. All right, so the class of 2024. To kind of paint a picture of this class, there were 89 graduates in the class of 2024. Their experience was not a typical experience. They were definitely impacted by the COVID pandemic. It hit in March of their 8th grade year. So definitely a major pivotal time for them. And then they entered high school. If you can think back to those days of, they were fully remote at the beginning, and then they were, either in cohort A or cohort B, and were coming in only 2 days a week. And then, when they ever did return, I think by everybody was back. Maybe by March of their freshman year, we were still in masks. I think we were still in masks when they came back their sophomore year. Certainly academic expectations we were all, in survival mode and going with the flow and in a totally new teaching and learning environment. So that was sort of what their first couple of years looked like. In terms of their ability to access the SAT or ACT, they had kind of normal ability to access the SAT or ACT because those things don't happen until their junior and senior year. The majority of, so because during the pandemic, it was very difficult to access the SAT and the ACT, almost all colleges went completely test optional, meaning that they did not require the SAT or ACT to be submitted as part of the college application, and they remained test optional, almost all of them, with the exception of a few. For example, like MIT requires the SAT, the University of Georgia, the University of Texas at Austin, and the Florida State colleges require the SAT. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. So vast majority of schools remained test optional. So this class could access the test just as easily as anybody before the pandemic, but there was sort of less pressure on them to take that test. Yeah, and then AP exam conditions were normal for this class, where they had been a little wonky for the previous two classes. A little bit of a change was that there were some digital exams, which I think as older people were like, oh, what's that going to do? How's that going to change things? Didn't change anything. The kids are very used to taking digital exams, and now for this coming year, AP exams will be fully digital. And I'll just add a little bit about the class of 2024. So we'll get into it with their test scores. I would say sort of academically, they were a little bit of a different class, and I think of them sort of personality-wise as a different class. You'll see some of their test scores I think of, or you'll see are a little bit lower than some previous classes, which I think could be in a big part due to when COVID hit for them. I mean, they came into the high school, which, you know, we do. It is definitely the academic expectations are higher typically, and that 8th grade year is a lot of time spent preparing them for those changes in academic expectations and building some of those really intense independent study skills, and they missed that. So I think that definitely had an impact on them, and you'll see as we go throughout this presentation that some of their average scores are lower. But I will also say that I think that they're a really good example of a class where like test scores aren't everything, because they were a standout in terms of their like group kind of culture and personality, their like creativity, their outgoingness, their presentation skills, their they participated in class discussions more than almost any other class. They just had like such great personality, social skills, leadership skills. As I sat and watched some of their senior projects, I was blown away just by how well they presented their senior projects and some of the awesome things that they accomplished through their senior projects. So I just sort of like give that caveat to the fact that like they had so many strengths and were such a great group of kids. And it is interesting in Millis how we're small, so kind of different classes can take on personalities and cultures, and things can shift from one class to another. So you'll see some of that in the presentation tonight. Our college acceptances remained strong kind of as usual for Millis students. So there's a big list of some of our college acceptances for this class. And I'm happy to say that 86% of the class of 2024 were admitted to one of their 3 top choice schools. And the overall satisfaction with the post-high school plan was a 4.15 out of 5. So definitely the SAT scores not being required by colleges shakes things up a bit, makes things a lot more unpredictable. But, you know, we have kids get into incredible schools. We definitely have some surprises in terms of schools that we thought kids would get into where they didn't end up getting in. And then we have the opposite happening where we have kids getting into incredible schools that had they required SAT scores, it may not have been the case. Yeah, just some awesome schools that our kids got into and went off to. And 80% of the class of 2024 went off to a 4-year college after graduation. and 89% plan to continue formal education in general. So 9 students went off to a 2-year college. And then we did have 9 students entering the workforce, and again, kind of speaking to their different skills. I think like 5 or 6 of them had already started together and with other kids and other people in town, their own businesses, and were very, having success during their senior year and wanted to continue doing that after graduation. So various things, and another 2 students were interested in musical careers. So one of them got a sound engineering internship, and that was what he was headed off to do. But yeah, so some different things after graduation. But we did have 89% go off to some sort of education after high school, and we had 9 students jump right into the workforce. Oh, and then we had 1 student who was taking a gap year, and his plan was to attend a 4-year college after his gap year.
It was a very entrepreneurial.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Like they were making more money than their guidance counselors by the time they left. And just to show kind of it's kind of on trend, no major difference. With we tend to have 80 to 90% of our students going off to 4-year colleges and 2-year colleges. For geographical placement, 72% of the class of 2024 ended up in New England states, which is sort of kind of in our normal range. There's obviously so many incredible schools in New England, so a lot of good reasons to stay close. But we also sent students off to Pennsylvania, Maryland, Indiana, Michigan, Florida, Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Arizona. Okay, and so again, for the SAT, if you don't know, the SAT is a college entrance exam, and there's 2 sections, evidence-based reading and writing, and math. You can get up to 800 in each category, and the total is out of 1,600. And again, normal access to the SAT for this class, but it is test optional for them. And just to kind of paint a quick picture of access to the SATs over the past few years, before the last normal class before the pandemic was the class of 2020, because they had already completed SATs by the time the pandemic hit. And so 91% of that class, which was sort of typical for us before the pandemic, took the SAT. And then during the year that the pandemic was really going, only 18% of the class took the exam, and you'll see because of that small percentage, our averages were really high that year, because of course the strongest students are going to be the ones who find a way to take that test even when it's hard and not required. And then for the class of 2022, it was still somewhat hard to take the exam, so we were able to offer an in-school exam to all of our students to kind of get that participation back up and help them to get access to the test. So we had 83% of them participate in the SAT that year. And then for the class of 2023, it was just normal. We went back to normal. We didn't offer it during school. The kids were accessed it on their own, and the participation went back up to 89%. For the class of 2024, 69% of them took the SAT. And just interestingly, because our current seniors have finished their SATs as well, this year it's down to 60% for SATs. So we encourage the kids to take the SATs. We, because it's something that can strengthen their application if their scores end up being a strength for them. We want them to take them prepared, do their best on them, and then if they're not a good reflection of who they are as a student, they don't need to submit them, because most schools don't require them, but they can strengthen. That's what we were sort of curious to see if that happened, and I think it might be kind of starting to trend that way, because so many schools are test optional. Kids who already are like, testing's not my thing. If I don't need to do it, I won't. So yeah, so 69% for last year's class, and then 60% for the current seniors. It seems like we're trending in that direction, but we'll see if things change. Some colleges, like a few more colleges, have brought back the requirement. I thought even more would, but so far that hasn't happened. So we'll see. But yeah, so 69% of this class took the SAT. And compared to Massachusetts before the pandemic was at 80% participation, and they, for the class of 2024, were at 55%. So all of Massachusetts, it seems, may be trending towards fewer students taking it. Our mean score for this class of 2024 was 1081, which was a decrease from the class of 2023. The class of 2023 scores were very strong. They were the strongest that we've had other than that crazy year where very few people took it. So class of 2023 scores were very strong. This class was lower than the class of 2023. And we were below the Massachusetts mean and above the national mean. And just to kind of break that down by section, for the evidence-based reading and writing score, we were a 547 for this class, which was a decrease from the previous class, and it was below the Massachusetts mean but above the national mean. And our math score was also a decrease from the previous class, below the Massachusetts mean and above the national mean. And this is data from the last 8 years. And so you can see for evidence-based reading and writing, we're the blue line, Millis, so we like to be above that Massachusetts average, and we have been kind of typically on trend slightly above that average. And just for this class, it did dip below the Massachusetts mean. For what it's worth, for this current senior class, I have our numbers, but I don't have Massachusetts and national numbers. And the the evidence-based reading and writing mean is a 593. So if you're looking at the graph, it would be up closer to it would be up, higher than we were getting before the pandemic. So kind of up to what we're used to. So I guess I point that out to say is I think this was a unique class that, again, COVID hit them at a unique time, and different other things about this class that they just sort of had their culture. I don't think that it's a trend that we're lower. I think that it was just their class. So yeah, for math as well, below the Massachusetts mean, but above the national. And for our current seniors, we have 558 for an average math score. So we are coming back up. On this graph, we would be above the Massachusetts for this year. And a somewhat useful tool is the DART comparison, where they compare us to 10 other like schools. And we're similar in size to those schools. I think we're supposed to be very similar in demographic. I don't know that their system is perfect for calculating that, but we were, out of the DART schools, we were the lowest for this class for overall SAT and the evidence-based reading and writing. We're 8th out of 10 for the math. And again, we were the third smallest with a group of 61 test takers, and the biggest group was 89. So I feel like that's really what they were using to compare us to other towns. So you can see some of their mean scores here, and I think I'd probably argue that Harvard, Manchester, Essex, and Hamilton, Wenham, I think they're not similar to us in some ways. I think probably like average household income is probably higher in some of these towns, which can play a role in these things. But again, our average for this year's graduating seniors, for this senior class would be 1150. So it would be up closer to this line here. And yeah, again, I don't think it's a trend. I think it's just what this class went through. For the ACT is another college entrance exam that before the pandemic, we really encouraged kids to take it. And we had around 25% of students who would take the ACT before the pandemic hit. But with the de-emphasis on college entrance exams, we have not seen a rebound back to those numbers after the pandemic. It's been at 3% participation, which means 2 or 3 kids per class for the last 3 years. So because of that, we don't really have data to talk about because there were fewer than 5 students who took the ACT. Okay, so for AP courses, AP courses are college level courses that are very rigorous and require a lot of independent work. And at the end of the year, students take a 3 or 4 hour exam on that subject. And if they score that, the exam score on that test is out of 5. And if they earn a 3 or higher, they can potentially get college credit at their future colleges for having taken that course. So at Millis High School, we had 14 different AP exams last year. And of the graduating class, 65% of them participated in the AP program, which was a bit of a dip from previous classes where we were kind of trending upward, and we're at 80% in 2023. And then for all the exams that year, which are available to, we have seniors, juniors, and sophomores that take AP exams. So I think most of the data that I'm talking about is no longer about the class of 2024, but it's about the year 2024 and all of the students who took those exams. So 81% of all exams earned a 3 or higher. In 2024, 53% of all the exams scored a 4 or higher, which was an increase from the previous year, and 19% scored a 5, which is the highest possible score, which was up slightly from 18%. So our AP exam scores were higher for the 2023-2024 school year. We had 177 exams taken by 110 students. So this is the percentage of AP exam scores 3 or above for Millis High School. The gray is a score of a 5, which is that highest possible score. White is a 4, and purple is a 3. So you can see that those numbers are increasing, which is great compared to previous years. And our participation, I'd say, kind of is generally continuing to increase for the most part. Some of our classes are smaller than others, which can play a role in small dips. But for our mean grades, we were higher than the global and the state mean grades in 9 out of the 10 exams that were taught at Millis High School. So we had 3 courses last year that kids took online, and so they were prepared for those exams through online classes. But of the classes that were taught here by Millis High School teachers, 9 out of 10 of them were higher than the state mean grades and the national mean grades. And they also those same 9 out of 10 exams had mean grades of 3 or above, which is that passing mark. This is just kind of a visual where you can see us compared to the state and national mean grades by subject, and that we were above the state and national mean grades for each subject, with the exception of computer science. And the AP Scholars, so an AP Scholar is a recognition granted to students who receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. If they are recognized as an AP Scholar with honor, it means that they they got at least 3.25 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. And an AP Scholar with distinction was granted to students who receive an average score of at least a 3.5 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or 4 or more of these exams. So we're super proud that 27% of all of our AP exam takers last year earned one of those distinctions. 8 seniors and 1 junior earned the distinction status. 6 seniors and 6 juniors earned the AP Scholar with honor status, and 3 seniors and 6 juniors earned the AP Scholar award status. And of the 10 total schools included in the DART analysis, Millis students recorded the 8th highest percentage of exams scoring a 3 or above with 81%. But as you can see from the graph, the differences are not huge. Like, I'd say we're kind of in line with most of the school. We're all kind of on the same, in similar score range there. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, but historically, we've had a higher percentage of our classes taking the AP exams. We've had higher
Yes.
participation and good scores.
Yes, yeah, and we require our students to take the exam at the end of the year. So everybody who takes an AP class must take the exam, whereas other schools I don't know each school's policy, but they don't necessarily do that. So it could be sort of helpful to their scores if not all students take the exam, because obviously the students who are feeling confident and really strong in the subject are going to take the exam, and students who aren't feeling as confident may opt out, and so that can kind of help to inflate scores too. Just a breakdown of the kids last year who took exams. We had 22 exams taken by sophomores, with a mean score for sophomores of 3.55. 78 were taken by juniors, with a mean score of 3.65, and 77 were taken by seniors with a 3.25 mean. Spanish immersion, we had 17 Spanish immersion students in the class of 2024. And again, the class of 2024 kind of threw us a curveball here, because typically Spanish immersion students tend to have higher SAT scores than the rest of the class. But for this class, they had a higher GPA, a 4.01 on average, compared to the overall class average of a 3.5. And 100% of our Spanish immersion students indicated they were going to attend a 4-year college, compared to 80% of the entire graduating class. For English-based reading and writing, they had essentially the same average for compared to the entire class. And then they were slightly higher in math, but their overall SAT score was really similar to the rest of the class. 17 Spanish immersion students in this class took the AP Spanish language exam, and 14 of them scored 3 or above. So there were 2 that got 5s, 8 that got 4s, 4 that got 3s, and 3 that got 2s. So for summary observations, again, I would say that, and this class, it's not like there was like a huge dip in their test scores, but they're a little bit lower than the previous few classes. But again, like, I think they're a really good example of, like, test scores don't measure everything. They had so many strengths and so many skills that will definitely allow them to be successful in college and careers for sure. We actually missed them around the hallways because they were just really fun to have around. But yeah, we were excited that our kids continue to get accepted to awesome schools and be satisfied with their outcomes, and be able to move on to all these opportunities in higher education and different careers. I think I mentioned it before, but 86% said they were admitted to one of their top 3 choice schools. And then their overall satisfaction was a 4.15 out of 5. 71% of them said that financial aid was a factor in deciding where they ended up going. So that does often play a role, and why there's often a difference between where they get into and where they end up going, because college just does get more and more expensive. So that plays a role for our kids. And it'll just, again, sort of be interesting to see how the SAT trends just in terms of participation. that it does seem to be declining, and it'll be interesting to see whether colleges continue to remain test optional or if more of them bring that back, and if our kids continue to kind of, opt out of it for the kids that don't feel like they need it, and it won't be a strength for them. But yeah, we appreciate you guys being really supportive of the counseling office and just everything that you all do for the school in general, and I appreciate you giving me the time to come and present.
Thanks for highlighting.
Thank you.
I guess one, just on the SAT. So are people taking the pre-SATs and pre-ACTs at a lower rate too?
Yeah, so slightly lower, and we've always offered pre-ACTs to sophomores and then PSATs to juniors, and we're thinking about switching to there's a PSAT 10 for sophomores because so few of our kids are taking the pre-ACT, the ACT, that I think their time would be better spent practicing more for the SAT. But yeah, they still are participating in it in similar numbers, but it hasn't been a huge drop because we do try and encourage all of them to do it, and it's what all their classmates are doing on that Saturday. Not all of them, but so it's a little bit easier to get that. Whereas the actual SAT, they have to sign up for it. It's at a different high school so they're just less inclined.
You just kind of look at it like if schools start all of a sudden, like I can just envision like, oh crap, now everybody wants it, and you didn't take it. And
Right.
and then you didn't take PSATs, and then all of a sudden you're a junior, and it's just.
Right, and
weird.
some schools, like for this year's current juniors, they would be taking it in March or May of this year, and some schools still haven't announced for their graduating class what their testing policy is going to be. So we really encourage the kids to do it because it can't hurt. If you do well, awesome, it's going to help. And if you don't do well, then nobody needs to know. Just pick the schools that don't require it. But you don't know this far in advance whether or not you'll need it. So we try to encourage them to. But also for some kids, they just know. They're like, it's just not my thing.
In the PSAT, I think they're experiencing fewer kids taking it too because they're kind of encouraging schools to give it during the school day.
Yes. Yeah. And so like for this next year, we'll have a decision to make because they do want schools to take it during the school day. I assume it makes the College Board more money that way because they'll have more kids taking it if it's during the school day rather than on a Saturday. And we typically offer it during a Saturday. So this year they're only offering it on the Saturday of the long weekend in October. So, I mean, like soccer tournaments so, yeah. But then it's like, then we have to take it, to do it during a school day means less time on learning and really kind of throwing off an entire school day, like MCAS does, on a day like today. So, yeah, it's hard. And it's like, I don't know.
They do it in October.
Yeah, you have to do it in October.
So
I know. I was hoping for a half day in October so I could, because it's like a half day at the test. I was hoping to land it on, but there's no half days in October, but that's okay.
PD day in October is a full day.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, I know you guys are working on it.
Yeah.
Figuring it out, but
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's also a question because it's like if only 60% of them want to take it, do we derail this whole school day for,
Right, 6 out of 10 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Decisions.
And it's tough to say, well, if you want to take it, we're going to have it on this Wednesday, whatever. And then what do you do with the kids? Well, I don't want to take it.
Right. Yeah.
So, all things we'll be grappling with.
Yes.
I was wondering if you did the seal of bioliteracy.
We do the seal of biliteracy. I don't know the numbers on like how many kids do it.
I can get
Yeah.
that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was like a Spanish one and if like the kids from Spanish immersion took it versus
Yes.
the non-Spanish immersion ones and how those numbers
Yeah,
played out.
we have both. Again, that's optional as well.
Yeah.
But I can get that info. And I know we also have kids who and this brings MCAS into it, we also have kids who are EL students who, if they received a proficient on MCAS in ELA, they could take a test in, say, Portuguese, and if they pass that, they get the seal of
Seal of
literacy.
literacy, yeah,
But
yeah.
now
Yeah.
with MCAS not being required, I mean, they're all gonna take it anyhow, but are they gonna have like a passing score, like, so, things that remain to be seen. Ms. Copese, do you have some information?
I know the stats on the advanced seals for biliteracy.
Okay,
We
advanced,
had one in Spanish and one in Portuguese.
great, yeah. And much like the AP scholars, there are different levels, so
I don't know the rest of it. I
Yeah.
just do.
Yeah,
So our numbers are good with that, because, largely because of immersion.
yeah. Well, anything else you-
Awesome, thank you. It's
Thank
good to see
you.
you all.
And thank you for what you and Nicole are doing. There's always something happening down there, and there's great work, and our kids are very fortunate.
Thank you.
All right, where did we leave off? Did we do all the action items? Okay. So, I know, right, sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, so we're at the chair report, the MSBA update? Just in time, that's right. Okay, so for the chair report, the school building committee met with the MSBA.
Yeah, the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee.
Yes.
And that meeting, they kind of grill us on the preferred design that we're putting forward. And it's just a subcommittee of the MSBA. And they kind of look at the design and look at our ed plan and, you know, questions that come to mind. They asked during that meeting. There really wasn't a whole lot of questions. There were some things, some design things, like one of the members of the subcommittee had questions about how many entrances and what's a main entrance, and, you know, kind of like what we have now, where we have at the beginning of the day, the high school doors open, the middle school doors open, and the doors by the gym are open, but once the day starts, everything's locked down, and you have to buzz into either the high school or the middle school or the superintendent's office. So those, they had questions on those types of things. And as far as the ed plan went, they didn't have a whole lot of questions on the ed plan. You know, we talked a little bit about how, you know, with like flexibility in some of those spaces, so that, you know, if in the future we can bring back a program like TV production, we want a space that can house it. And the STEAM spaces that are contemplated for this project would certainly fit the bill for that. And so then the next steps with that are, the board will vote on that on April 30th. And then, and in the meantime, we're planning we've tentatively got a community forum planned for May 1st, where there'd be some more detailed information on what it might actually look like at the, you know, at the room level, or, and we'd like to do, so we're looking into setting up some tours so people can kind of see, you know, why we think this project is very important and very much needed. And just looking further ahead, we're in the schematic design phase where they take, you know, our preferred option and then really cost it out, and we really start to make decisions on what, you know, what classrooms would look like and things like that. And so Once we finish the schematic design phase, we'd be looking at submitting our proposal to the MSBA on October 28th. They'd vote on, excuse me, August 28th. They'd vote on the project and our proposed budget on October 29th. And then we'd have a special meeting for town voters, a town meeting, special town meeting in November 2025 to vote on funding the project.
Yeah, so we're in the design phase for a couple of months, trying to figure some stuff out.
Yep.
But we'll be presenting to or have an open house for folks to look at in May. So it's kind of the immediate stuff.
And Mark and Denise, I know you were involved with Clyde Brown, and this is kind of the part where they kind of sharpen their pencils and come up with what the program will cost.
What materials are going to use, things like that. Yeah. All right. All right, we'll move into the superintendent's report.
Okay. We have Mr. Wigan with the financial report for FY25, where we stand,
Okay.
end of March.
We're in good shape. Any questions?
Yes.
Well done, Terry.
What do you mean?
No, seriously, the spending is a little bit ahead of where we'd hope it would be at this point, but we're also coming to the end of winter. So things will wind down in the last quarter. We're coming out of winter. We'll wind down our fuel usage. We've just gotten our new vans online. We've
nice.
hired some drivers.
Good.
So that's going to reduce our contracted services
Great,
for
great.
those vans. So there's some things that have helped, and they're going to reduce and stabilize some of that as we move into the last quarter of the year. So all in all, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Great.
Any questions? Could have done that from over there.
I know, you could have. Thanks for coming up to this.
If you had stayed over there, we would have had questions.
Fun podium, right?
Take a water.
Yeah.
I have one.
You weren't.
No questions. Thanks for keeping us on task. That looks like that's it.
Yeah, just
Oh,
a few things
go ahead.
to report, like
Yeah.
update Clyde Brown principal search.
Oh, yeah.
We had the paper screening come up with some candidates calling for interviews. We had interviews last Thursday,
Thursday and then yesterday.
and then yesterday, and so we're in the process of choosing some finalists, and so the process is moving. What we're looking at potentially is having finalists interview with the administrative team, and then finalists visiting Clyde Brown, touring, having a chance to talk with staff, and then we'll be looking at a community forum. So right now, the tentative timeline is to have that happen by the end of next week. So the timeline works.
Fit all that in by the end of the year?
We're looking at it. Yeah.
With the community forum too?
The community forum would be looking at a potential, again, it depends on if the finalists can make it,
yeah.
potential next, a week from tomorrow, a community forum.
That's good. It is only Tuesday, Mark.
True, that's true.
It's only Tuesday. Although it feels like it should be Thursday or Friday.
I agree with that. It's been a week, it's a month.
Anything else?
Yeah, and part of why it might seem like Thursday or Friday to you, Robin, is because yesterday we were
Oh, yeah.
meeting at UMass Amherst with a budget hearing on school funding and municipal funding. And so there was a lot of sitting going on and listening. But the positive I took out of it was that Representative Marcus Vaughn is on the Joint Ways and Means Committee, and he commented to us that a budget, he's never been to a budget hearing that was so well attended. And it was, people let it be known that Chapter 70 is a problem. It's not just a problem for Millis. And so there were bursts of applause every time someone said, we need to look at the Chapter 70 formula.
To the point where they said no more applause because our meeting is going to go too long. So just go like this if you're in favor of it. It was kind of
a long
funny.
meeting.
It was quite long, yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
no,
had-
I
and
think,
Town Administrator Kaczynski, Assistant Town Administrator, and Chairperson Rosenfeld all went as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, we had
That's a
good-
great
we had
showing.
good
yeah, the
showing.
5 of us
Yeah,
were there.
that's really
Showing,
good.
and, you
We
know,
had some Millis signs that we got onto the live stream.
Right. Thank you to, we had some students who write very neatly here and during free periods. They,
Excellent.
you know, so again,
Thank you for going.
I think
Yeah.
it's, you know, I'm hoping that this is moving us towards a tipping point where they do look at the formula, because 232 districts receive minimum aid.
Yeah, I
Minimum
think,
aid is not enough to keep up with the expenses.
I think that was like my takeaway, that like there are many towns out there that are going through what we're going through, and many of the senators and representatives made comments and pushed back at the budget to the Secretary of Education and to the Commissioner of DESE, like asking them what they can do for, like, would they be willing to change the Chapter 70 formula, and asking them questions about like why they're doing the things that they're doing, and complaining that their district is in the same boat that we are. And so like many people are pushing back from like the state level to the education people in a good way. But they said like, nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to follow your lead in the legislature. So it's going to take the representatives and senators to come up with how to redo the formula, because the Department of Ed is unwilling to do it.
But like, I mean, just, you guys were going out there yesterday, and yesterday morning, North Andover's talking about 40 staff layoffs.
There's so many.
Natick has an override. I think it's this weekend. Like, it's everywhere.
Yep, it's everywhere.
Everywhere is having overrides, layoffs.
Yep, laying off 20 to 30 teachers in small district like us, all throughout that was the whole conversation at the meeting yesterday. On April 8th, they have a public comment time, so you can go to the State House at 11 to their budget public hearing, and if you would like to speak, you can sign up to speak and speak to them, so maybe I might do that.
I can send out that information.
Yeah, I looked on the link. It didn't. They said you have to like sign up to speak, but I didn't see that on the list, the link that they sent us. So we'll have to email.
Yeah, I know there's
Senator.
Also a link for where you can submit written testimony.
Yeah.
So I submitted some testimony, and if people in town want to submit testimony, they're welcome to do so, and I think that would be helpful, again, if the DESE is saying we're going to follow the lead of the legislature on this, then we have to put the pressure on the legislature to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very long, a long meeting. And we only stayed for the first section. There were 9 sections, and we left at 3 and started at 11. So we can watch the highlight reels, I guess, later. All right, that is all we have on the agenda for today. We have Unit A negotiation, collective bargaining to chat about. That's coming up next week. In executive, Mr.
I
Conlon.
make a motion to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for Unit A and non-union personnel.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote, not to come back into open session. I don't know if you said that or not. Yep.
Not to come back to open
Yep.
session.
Ms. Gibbons,
Aye.
are you in favor? Mr. Conroy?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Ms. Canistari?
Aye.
And Mr. Powers? All right, we are adjourned until April 8th, where we will chat more.